Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of What in the Hell Am I Doing Wrong? I am Jameelah B, your host, and I have the pleasure of having my cousin Elijah Gosier here today to discuss with me the dynamics of male-female relationships. I will say this before we get started. Elijah and us we're more like siblings than we are like cousins. Our parents, our mother, his father and my mother are siblings. And we grew up together. And I know it's football Sunday. And Elijah has always been a big football fan, preferably the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm not going to hold him up all day. So I know he likes to watch his football. So, so Elijah, thank you for joining me today. And let's go ahead and get started. So
Well,
tell me.
first, thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I guess I could start with the basic stuff, the
Mhm.
biology, the male female relationship. So,
Mhm.
um, the obvious thing is for a woman to have a child, the cost is quite heavy. She's got to carry the child for 9 months, 10 months. A child is usually dependent on the mother for the first year or two. So the cost of reproduction is pretty high. So what that means is typically women or females, and this goes to the animal kingdom too, they usually pick mates that have a lot of good traits. So women will tend to study or um, review males and just have a particular set of traits they're looking for. On the converse side of that, the opposite side of that, men, we can have as many children as we can get, as many women we can get to, so to speak. So for us, we don't have that same standard um, that cost. And so in general, that kind of guides how men and women kind of view the dating history. So when you look at men and women tend to usually go for men that have the same status or higher. And they rarely ever will date or, well, I mean, I can't say they would ever date, but they rarely ever go for somebody that's a lower status than them. And typically if they do, that relationship doesn't last. So, I mean, if you think about fairy tales, you always have a woman that's a peasant that marries the prince. Marries the prince. You never really have it vice versa. So it's even embedded in our fairy tales and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it's kind of common. So, and I think um, depending on the circumstances, if women want to have better results, I think they just need to change their approach in some ways.
Yeah, you and I had this conversation because we were talking about, you were talking about me and what I was saying about being over 40 and how it's hard to date and meet somebody. You mentioned that women should be a little bit more aggressive, especially as they get older in dating. And we, as women, we've always been taught that you wait for the man to approach you. You don't do the approaching. But in our conversation, you said something about as we get older, of course, it's more difficult for women in the dating field, and that men are receptive to aggressive women, but to a certain degree. But what does that look like, and how would you, expect a woman to do that when her train of thought has always been to let the man approach her?
Well, I think when you say aggressive, that's kind of like a loaded term. So
Mm,
what I mean is, and I should say, and I should have probably defined this, but what I mean by aggressive doesn't mean like she goes and asks him for his name, his phone number, and all that. It just may be just initiating a conversation. It can be simple as asking what time it is, just where, depending on where you are, just saying, I got to give that example. Like when I was at the bar, the two ladies said, is it okay for them to sit next to me? And I said, sure. And then we just started the conversation. That wasn't really like she did anything above and beyond. Like she asked me my phone number and my name and all that. It just kind of flowed naturally. So
mm,
what I mean by a lot of times women they'll just take a look at you and smile, and that's all they do. That's their shot. Versus actually coming and talking to people or saying something.
mm,
I know a lot of times women will just get in the area and hope the guy says something. And like I was saying to you earlier, a lot of guys don't even understand proximity. Like if a woman gets close to you, typically that means she's interested in you, and a lot of guys don't even understand that. So to women that's very obvious, but to a lot of men that isn't. So what I mean is just take it up another notch because men don't have that same. A lot of them don't have that same. They don't read body language well.
mm.
So and those kind of little small nonverbal cues, they don't pick up on them very well. So you may have to do a little bit more, but it doesn't mean that you lead the whole conversation, ask the name, and then set up a date or something. It could just be initiating conversation enough to let him know well, maybe she's interested in me.
Mm-hmm. And I think, as we were talking today about the topic of the day, the dynamics of the male-female relationship. As far as Black women are concerned, I know I can speak from that perspective, of course, because I am a Black woman and I'm over 40 and I'm single, and I don't feel comfortable approaching men. A lot of Black women don't feel comfortable approaching men. A lot of Black women, we do limit our options in some aspects as far as dating outside our race, or dating someone that might be of a different economic or educational level than us. But when we do that, like Camila said, often I see women who are considered a princess marrying a peasant. So, they do, a lot of, like when Kevin Samuels made the comment to the woman who was saying, remember the gentleman I think I was telling you about, who said that the woman, she wasn't, she was average at best, and that she might not get those men that she's seeking. A lot of women are afraid of rejection. We're afraid of looking a certain type of way because, especially as Black women, we're already, hypersexual, overly sexualized. So if you have a woman that's approaching a man, that may not always come out well, especially for a Black woman.
Yeah, but you got to do it in a way that you don't. That it's not a rejection kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, like those ladies asking to sit next to me, they had plenty of options. So for me, right then, I knew right away they were interested because one, they want to get in my space. Two, they had other chairs. They could have sat anywhere. They could have sat in a booth. I didn't think they were sitting in a booth. So when I came in and sat down, they moved over. So that was all it took for me to know, okay, I always assume a woman's talking to me, she's interested in me. That's just how I am. And she may not even have any interest in me, but that's not my mentality. So I think if a woman, and it takes practice too. You're not going to be able to, she's not going to be able to just walk out and start just talking to any man, but it could be simple stuff like in the grocery store. I know one woman asked me about fruit. Was it ripe or not? How could I tell? I don't know, but I knew she wasn't really caring. I think she knew already, but I think she was just breaking the ice and starting a conversation. So instead of being like picking up a guy, I would say more is breaking the ice and just figuring out a way to break the ice, and in a way that she doesn't have to feel like she's putting herself out there, but it's just to break the ice and start a conversation.
Yeah, and I think you kind of answered it a little bit. Everett was asking, how did you handle the conversation after that? So, you say she kind of broke the ice, and you all went from there.
Yeah, we kept talking. I only meant to stay there probably about 30 minutes just to eat and go home. But I wound up staying there 3 hours, and I wound up talking to her. I found out all kind of stuff. So I talked to her about a realtor, and then I talked to the realtor the next day because she told me she was looking for a house this weekend. And the realtor goes, "How long have you known her?" I said, "I just met her last night," because I knew all these details about her. So it's just a natural conversation. I'm just that way. So I can go into the bar and talk to anybody, and it just be a natural conversation. So I think part of it is if you just treat people like normal people, like you got no agenda, it happens kind of naturally. So I think a lot of times, and this goes for men too, like they see her like a hot woman or something, they put a lot of weight on talking and they never wind up talking to her. But you just walk up and talk to her like she's just anybody, you wind up having a conversation.
That's true.
But I think too, a lot of women that are say 9s and 10s, they don't get approached because guys just assume they're taken. They're either married or taken. So you got a lot of women that are on the upper end of the scale. They're single.
Yeah, and I mean, I will be honest, Elijah. I don't know how you feel about this, but I do. And I'm laughing at it before I get into LaDonna, bro. When I was single, I would shoot my shot, and if I missed, I still had practice to eventually win the game. At least you were willing to play the game. I'm not even willing to play the game. I'm scared to miss. I guess that's the ego in me. I don't want to be rejected. So maybe I need to get away from that. But
well, change your frame of mind. You're changing as they're rejecting you. Typically, that's not what's going on. They're not rejecting you at all. They don't even know you. So how do they reject you, though?
But Elijah,
you know what I mean?
It is rejection.
Like if you came and you sat down at the bar and you went and talked to this guy and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" or whatever, or "What are you drinking?" That usually starts a conversation. They're not rejecting you. If they don't talk, they don't talk. But that may not have nothing to do with you. They may have a bad day at work, and that's unrelated to you.
And I mean, I guess without the knowing the information, you will take it as a rejection. I know I would. My ego would be hurt so bad because I'll think, like you mentioned to me before, men are visual creatures. So a woman, if she approaches a man and he's giving her like the cold shoulder, immediately she's going to get insecure and self-conscious and think it's something wrong with her.
You know what? To be honest with you, I've been approached by women that I didn't think nothing of, but I always talk to them. Mm-hmm. I never had even women, especially women that approached a group of us as guys were like just hanging out watching football. They always got conversation out of us. They were able to sit down. We bought them drinks, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So it's rare. I can't see a guy doing that.
Okay, I like this comment. Daryl said, "I didn't speak to a certain cutie because I thought she was out of my league. I finally broke down and told her how I felt. Oh, isn't that sweet, Daryl? And what was the outcome of that?" And again, I mean, I think I was going to say earlier, Elijah, a lot of women, we hit a certain age, dating is difficult. And, like I think you and I discussed about the sexual marketplace. I think when you're in your 20s, I guess you're more desirable, right? Or as you get older for women, you're less desirable.
I don't know if it's less desirable. I just think that men typically just look for young and healthy, because that means that they can have children. It's a subconscious. It's not like a conscious thing. And so typically men on the other end don't really. We're like in our 40s is typically when men make the most money. They make like in their career, their high point or high peak is going to be in their 40s. Typically because they've had time to go through their career, and then by the time they're 40, they've been promoted to the highest level they're probably going to ever get, and that's where they're going to make the most money. But I wanted to say something about what Daryl said, because that goes back to what I'm saying. A lot of times guys will see a woman say she's out of my league, so they won't say something, and it happens way more than not. A lot of times they go, "Oh, she's out of your league. Oh, she's out of your league." There's no such thing. You know what I mean? It's a frame of mind. So to me, it's like a 3-second rule. Like if you don't talk to a woman in 3 seconds when you see it, you will find all these little stupid excuses. She's taken. Oh, that must be her. You find out the guy walking with is her brother or her cousin. It's not even her boyfriend or something.
Yeah, and that's true. So you have the 3-second rule. And Camila said men can be rude. Elijah, I agree with her.
Yes.
I mean, they can be rude because that goes back to, the Kevin Samuels gentleman who does the relationship talk. I felt like the comment that he made to the young lady about she was average at best. I mean, granted, what he was saying, all the information that he was saying was, pretty accurate, but he didn't have to crush her in that way. You know what I'm saying? So he's pretty much telling her that she can't have the man that she wants because she's average at best. Like she won't even be looked at.
Yeah, but I think the problem is the way women rate themselves and the way men look at. Like I thought the woman was just average too, but I think the point that he was trying to make that was kind of missed was that when a woman is looking for a guy that's really successful, that guy is really looking. He's not looking for average women. He's looking for very hot, and he's going to be hit on by very hot women. So it's going to be hard for her to compete against other girls or other women that are 9s or 10s, if you want to put them on a scale or something like that. So I agree with that. I mean, if it's funny because and you'll see this, we'll talk about this. Like if you see like somebody that's a millionaire or like an athlete, and you see the girls like, man, he could have got a better girl than that. You know what I mean? Because it's all based off looks, and so usually the more successful a man is, typically the better looking the woman is going to be with him.
Okay.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, it's rare that a guy that's really, really rich is picking just an average looking woman, unless that's somebody he's known, way before he became successful. I didn't say that comment.
Oh, you want about the comment? It said,
somebody said, my husband
says he used to think the opposite. She is not in my league, not that she out of my league. Boom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you have a question, Elijah. Do you feel a woman can draw a man in with looks, sensuality, and femininity?
Yes. Quickly.
So and then it goes back. Okay, so let's flip it, Elijah. So if a man is a millionaire and he's expected to be with some serious arm candy, why can't the same be expected of a woman that is a millionaire? Because pretty much the situation that was going down with Kevin Samuels and the young lady that he said was average at best, she wanted a man that made six figures like her, but he was trying to say because of who she was, like she wasn't as pretty, she wasn't going to attract that person. So pretty much she has to go down.
No, I think his point, and what I got of it was, she could shoot for that, but she may have to settle for something less than that. Like I think she may wind up being lonely for a long time if she's only going to make that her only criteria for dating men. He was trying to tell her she needed to open up her options, and she was just like, "I'm gonna keep with this narrow option." And he was trying to tell her she needed to open her options. I think most people miss that part of it. He wasn't saying that she couldn't shoot for something like that. He was just saying she probably needed to open her options, and he gave the reason why, because usually the more successful a man is, the higher status looking woman he's going to want with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. That's true. So I'm going to branch off into dating a little bit, because I think that, as women, we expect men to be, the ones that come for us and want to date us. And I think you and I also talked about socialization, how women and men are socialized, or how, women, we are more mature at certain ages, and we're a little bit more advanced than like the man that's probably our age. So let's go back to like 17, 18-year-olds. You might have a 17 or 18-year-old boy and girl, but the girl is more mature. She's probably like somebody in her 20s, as a teenage boy is like literally a teenage boy. How would they relate as far as dating? How would they get together?
I just remember when I was in high school, all the girls that were like in junior or seniors, they always wanted to date guys that were 18, 19, or 20.
Uh-huh.
So that's my experience. I just remember, I remember some girl that I liked. She brought some guy that was like 20 years old to our basketball practice, and I want to punch him. You know what I mean? But it's the girls when they were seniors were already dating guys that were older, and I always think girls were always dating guys older than them. So, and that's typically the average. I mean, women rarely ever marry a guy or date guys that are younger than them.
Mm-hmm. And then, since we're talking about the dynamics of the female and male relationship as far as dating, I've been told that men, they like to have many options before they settle on one. And women usually, they narrow theirs down to one immediately, and then they don't go out like that. Do you think that women should do the same as what men do as far as dating multiple people at once?
I can't make a blanket statement like that. I would say people got to do what they feel comfortable with, and what fits with their values, their sets of values or whatever. Not every guy's out there trying to sleep with every woman he sees, and vice versa. Not every woman is trying to just stay with one guy. So I think it's just whatever works with you. I've met some.
Okay, I met some men that are younger than me that were mature as I am. I think it depends on the upbringing. It certainly does depend on the upbringing. I think as far as women, if we have a good example of what a woman is supposed to be or what a woman is, we make better choices as well as men. I think men move different in the world when they have a strong male figure in their life. I mean, I believe that. And Elijah, you can speak to that. I believe that they handle people a little differently when they have those good examples. I do agree with that. So,
I mean, and granted, a lot of what I'm saying is a generalization. So it's not a hard, fast rule that everything I'm saying applies across the board. There's going to be thousands, millions of exceptions, but in general, there's certain rules. I mean, like if you look at average, most women marry guys that are older than them. I mean, it doesn't mean like they're marrying somebody that's 10 years older, but it's usually a couple years older, but it's always guys older, the vast majority. Doesn't mean that women don't marry guys younger than them. It does happen, but it's rare.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So Elijah, what advice or what suggestions would you give? Oh, Elijah, you somebody called you Dr. Elijah Love. You should hold a boot camp for men.
Yeah, I've been told that years ago. Coworkers saw me at this place we used to go, Green Iguana, and they said I should write books. So part of it is just what I've seen, because like I just remember when I was like 22 or 23, I used to go to clubs and bars all the time, and I noticed there was always a difference. Like it was like hard to pick up women at bars and clubs. I don't know why. And then when I was at work, I always had all these women that were in love with me. And I was like, what's the difference? And then I realized they got to know who I was as a personality. Like when I was in a club and a bar, I wasn't showing my personality or whatever, but that's the big difference. I mean, who you are as a person, once they get to know you, then that strikes that attraction trigger.
So
So for
that
women,
makes.
I think.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Keep on what you're saying.
So I think for women, I think a lot of times they don't give themselves an opportunity to get to know a person. I think, like I said earlier, like you may see a woman across the way, and she'll smile, and that's her shot, so to speak. And if a guy doesn't get up and do anything at that point, it's lost. So
Yeah.
if I think women just have to get to start talking to a lot of people and start developing that. And it doesn't have to be anything where they overtly do anything where they're asking for the name and number. Just start up little insignificant conversations.
Yeah,
Like
because
I'll give you a perfect example. Like
get from me. I mean, I'll smile, but I don't think I'm gonna go no further than that. Yeah, I don't
but
know.
you're a confident person, and I bet you'd be surprised the reasons that you would get.
What'd you say,
I'm
Elijah?
sure a lot of guys would be happy with talking to them. I said a lot of guys would be happy that you're talking to them.
I appreciate that. I have no problem getting them. It's just a matter of keeping a good one. That's my issue. So I don't know. Maybe I think you and I talked about that too. Like maybe I'm picking, even though physically they may look different, they may have some kind of similar personality trait. So maybe I need to look at that. I don't know. Is my thing frozen?
Well, you also gotta remember too. Women are constantly, and some of it's conscious, some of it's unconscious, but they're always testing a guy to see if he's the right one. So you may have to look at some of that too. Like, are you starting an argument to see where things go? Are you constantly doing it? Is it an unconscious thing or what? You know what I mean? Because there's a value. Women are always constantly needing to know whether this guy is still. They need to know. They uncover. The traits that a good person has, but why he's in a relationship with her.
Well, the thing is, a lot of times women, you are right. I agree with you on that because we're always looking to try and uncover something because we do have, with things that go on out here, you have a lot of men that are scamming, that are lying, that are doing all types of stuff. So I think it's a defense mechanism for us. We want to make sure that we know the whole person and not just the representative. So I do think we set traps sometimes to see what the reaction would be.
Well, let me put it this way: if I had like $1 million in my pocket, and the money was hanging out my pockets all the time, and people started talking to me, the first thing I'm thinking is they're talking to me because money's hanging in my pocket. And then even while I'm with them, I'm probably thinking, well, they're still talking to me because money's still hanging in my pocket. So it's the same thing with women because guys are just visual. Women are still just wondering, is this guy just attracted to me because of what I look like versus who I am as a person? So that's where it comes from a little bit too.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So moving forward, I think that, I think I was going to bring up before and I got sidetracked a little bit. I think that even the whole dating game, and I mentioned it last week on the show, but I think the whole dating game has changed a little bit because of online dating. And I think that the approach becomes so convenient for people that they don't do the old school things that they used to do to try and get to know people. Do you feel like online dating has put a barrier in that natural communication between men and women? Like back in the day, how you would have to, get the nerve or the courage or what have you to walk up to a woman and approach her. When online, you could just, send her a message and whatever.
Well, I've tried online dating and it's never worked for me.
Why?
Because I'm a natural in person. I like to talk to people. I don't like sending a message to just a picture, and then 2 days later they respond. That's to me, it's not natural. And I can give you a couple of. I've met 2 women that didn't respond to me online, but in person they responded. So it was kind of weird. Like one of them, she was one of the sites used her picture as like the advertisement. And then when I sat next to her, I was like, "You look familiar." And she goes, "Yeah, I'm on such and such." And I said, "Yeah, I know that's it." And we started talking. She was on a date with somebody she met on that site. And the funny thing is, she was trying to ask me to go with them to another place because she didn't really like the guy she was with. And I said, "Nah, man, I ain't doing that." You had your shot to me. I was like, "You had your shot." And then another time I was at what was the place? It's Bahama Breeze. somehow I went up and I saw a girl. I said, I know you. And then we start talking. I said, yeah, I met and she remembered my messaging. And we talked a little bit. And then the whole night, because I was with other coworkers, we were just having like a after work thing. She was staring at me the whole time. Like every time I looked, it was kind of creepy because she just sat there and looked at and stared at me. I was like, after that point, I was like, man, she had her shot too. You know what I mean? I hate online dating.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. I just feel like, in today's dating world, especially for women, we get a lot of, I'm sure men do too. They get a lot of representatives and don't see the true person. And I think like Crystal said, in the beginning, the rep will show before you get to know what they want you to know. And then we are women try to uncover the layers. So we do try to uncover the layers and see who the person is. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I would actually prefer an in-person approach. I would.
Yeah. So, I've been on a couple of dates and all the women, they weren't like their pictures. Not like horribly, not like their pictures, but the personality part of it wasn't there.
So they were more, but see, that's the thing. What is it more physical than, they were physically attractive, but you didn't connect with them on that intellectual level.
Yeah. When we went out and just talked or whatever, it was just, I know, I like the conversation where it can just flow, and I hate to have to struggle to have a conversation with a woman and just, because then it's like when I'm going to go do something to have fun, I'm not going to have fun with this person.
That is true. That is true. So Elijah, as we're closing out, unless anyone has any more questions, I want to know what suggestions would you give to someone who is out here trying to actively date and, meet the right nice person? Because I know, you're still a single man by choice. And that's another thing. Why do men have this big thing about commitment or getting married and all that kind of stuff too? What is the big deal with that?
I think it has, like we said, like I've told you earlier, I think it has something to do with freedom. Like right now, I do whatever I want to do. I'm not checking in with nobody. If I want to go out and hang out to 11 o'clock or whatever, I'm not really, you know what I mean? That's part of it. And then you got to find the right person too.
So, being married or being in a relationship seems like prison or, some type of lockdown for you?
Prison's a strong term, but lockdown probably makes more sense. But you just feel hindered. It doesn't mean it's in a bad way. I think it's more in your head more than anything else. You know what I mean? This is like rejection. Like if you go talk to somebody, it's more in your head more than anything else. Like if I go talk to a woman, she's not going to shout at me and say, "Get away from me." But a lot of people like playing out in somebody's head, but that's not how it's going to happen.
That's true. But don't you think those things come from behaviors or experiences? Because I think for me, I don't think I would have a problem if I was married or if I was in a relationship. If my partner would say, if he said, "Oh, I want to go hang out with the boys" or whatever, I wouldn't be like, "No, you can't go." I think people do that when there has been a history of infidelity or cheating. I think that's when that comes into play.
Or they have a history with previous partners.
I think that comes from like history of being bad, doing bad things.
Yeah, but it could also be a history of people that, previous partners, or you know what I mean. Doesn't have to do something with the person that they're dating at current.
That's true. That is true. That's true. But I just always hear men say that they feel like they're being shackled or in some type of control to being. They like the freedom that they have being single. So.
It is more like we were kidding, we were talking about organizing something, the guys at work, and they were like, Brian, he's like, Brian's married and got kids, he's got to plan it a week ahead, like the rest of us, we could have just done it that Saturday, but they include Brian since he's married, we have to do that, he's got to let his wife know, they got to plan around it. It's not a bad thing, it's just that when you have a family, you can't just up and do whatever you want to do.
Right. Exactly.
You have responsibility.
That's more of what it is. Being considerate of the person in your life. So
yes,
it's more of what it is. So again, as we close out, what suggestions or advice would you give to those who are single and having problem meeting people? What would you say?
What I would say is don't make it so heavy. Don't put in expectations on the conversation you start. Just start talking to the person like you know them forever. Talk to them like your cousin or talk to them like your friend or something, and then go from there. I think the problem is when people start, I got to get this person. You know what I mean? No, just start talking to them and have a conversation with them, and then it goes from there.
Excellent. And I love that Daryl just said this. He wants to be happily married. His parents have been married for 64 years and his sister for 43 years. That's a beautiful thing. Wow. That's a beautiful thing. I mean, I doubt I ever make it to that point, but I'll take a good 10 or 15. Well, thank you, Elijah. And next week, I'm going to be talking about what men want. I'm going to be having guy talk, and then I'm also going to bring some ladies on about what they want. So we'll have like a battle of the sexes conversation. So anybody who's interested in participating in that conversation, please let me know so I can add you to this.
What do you mean what men want versus what women want?
In relationships, I think, a lot of times the expectations are a little different in what they want to get out of the relationship. Because I know for women, a lot of times we look for somebody who's going to be dependable, somebody who we can, who's going to be there for us. And men, they want the same, but in a different way. Like they want more someone to do house stuff or be more of a domestic person.
Well, I think you got to look at it. Women are looking for men to be providers and provide security. And then on the opposite, we see our roles as being the providers and being the guys that provide security. So that's a dynamic that men and women still try to play today, even though the roles have changed. Not the roles have changed, but the expectations have changed quite a bit. So it's funny to me, like nowadays, we want men and women to act a certain way, but we've kind of changed some of the rules of engagement, so to speak. And never really changed our behaviors. We're still trying to act like, well, it's the same, even though we've changed a lot of the rules. Like what I mean by that is like, you got women now that make a lot more money than men, but there's a lot of men like I give you the example of my friend that both him and his wife both do very well. He had a problem with his wife making more money than him, and I was like, "You're crazy, dude." You know what I mean? You got a beautiful wife; she makes a lot of money. To me, that sounds like two good check marks. You know what I mean? And he, for a while, he's like, "Oh, well, the man's got to make more money than her." I was like, "What rule is that?" You know what I mean? We changed. So it made sense back in, say, the 40s or 30s when women weren't allowed to go into, well, they were allowed to go to the workplace, but they weren't allowed to, or weren't expected to go to college, get good jobs. And now that's all flipped. Women go to college and get good jobs. They can be promoted to CEO, whatever. So for a man to always expect to make more than a woman, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And for her to make more money doesn't say anything about you. And he had a hard time about it because he's like, he had like these hard rules about a man supposed to make more than a woman. So she came out of FAMU with a Farm MD and making 80,000, and she got quickly to 120. He was way behind that for years to come. I mean, like, that's like, you're silly.
That's the male ego, and I think, like you said, in society, we're taught that men are supposed to be the providers and the head of the household. And I guess in his mind, he can't be those things because financially she brings more to the table. So,
correct.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about the rules of engagement. It kind of changed. We've changed some of the things around it, but we haven't really changed those rules and let people change their mindset. A lot of our problems is just the mindset we have, the frame that we have.
That is true. And I think it goes back to when you were talking about women approaching men. My mindset is so conditioned to, you're going to approach me. If you don't approach me, I'm not saying anything. So maybe there's some retraining I need to do with myself as well. So I'm open to that to a certain
extent. Don't think of it as approach. Just think of it as just starting a conversation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, Elijah. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to your football, but thank you.
Yeah, I missed quite a bit. I saw a couple of touchdowns happen. So
yeah, I saw your face. I'm gonna tell
this. My bad. I had a hard time just focusing. So
I know. I remember when we were kids. I'm gonna tell this story right quick, and I'm gonna let you go. I recall one time Mila, and Kimber. We wanted to watch Benji, and you were dead set on watching a Dallas Cowboys football game. And Mac, your brother, Mac was like, Elijah, just let them watch the game. You were so mad at us because we ended up watching. So I know how serious it is for you. So I'm not gonna hold you.
All right. Well, before we go, so next week, it's gonna be a panel of men and women discussing what men want and women discussing what women want.
Yeah, like the battle of. You're welcome to join. I mean, I know it's right before Super Bowl is what? Not next week. It's the week after, right?
Correct. There's no football on next weekend.
That's right. So I said I'll do something next week, and then the Super Bowl weekend I ain't even touching that. So yeah, so we're gonna talk about that because I think the expectations and relationships are a little bit different. So I think that's where we have
Well, it kind of goes to what I'm saying about the rules of engagement have changed. Like, sometimes you'll hold a door open for a woman, and someone say, "You don't have to hold the door open for me." You know what I mean? And they're like, and then I usually hold the door open for anybody behind me. It doesn't matter if they're men or women, but some women get offended and some women say thank you. So it's like some expectations have changed and we're not on the same page.
Yeah, that's true. That happened to me actually one time. It happened to me. I was with someone one time, and it was a good friend, and she's a feminist, and I consider myself a feminist to a certain degree as well. So these gentlemen were standing up, and they saw it was no more seats, so they said, "Oh, you all can sit down." They got up to let us sit in their chairs. I gladly sat down because I was happy to sit down, and she was like, "Just because I'm a woman, you don't think I can stand?" So she was offended, and I was like, "I'm not. I'm sitting down." So like you said, it depends, on the situation or what have you. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know in our family, it definitely makes a big deal. I remember Brandon, he was sitting in the chair, and I think one of my friends was in the room. He was like, "No, I got to get up. I got to get up." So it goes back to, I think Erica mentioned in the comments, is how your upbringing and what you're expected to do. So I think that's true. All right. Well, thank you, Elijah. I enjoyed the conversation, and maybe we could get some of our other cousins on here next time.
Did I cover all the points that we kind of talked about that one day or no?
We didn't, but I think we still got a good dialogue. We can bring that up at some other, unless it's something else you wanted to touch on. I know you talked about the hypergamy and the peacocking.
Oh, the one thing we probably should talk about is, so like I don't know if we remember the discussion we had about women in defenses, and I was saying typically Black women have more defenses than any other group of women. That doesn't say that other women don't. But I think if you get through those defenses and get through that hard shell, you got somebody that's going to be a ride or die.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you said that because our defenses are also based on things that, we've been through and what, has happened to us over the years. And yeah, once you get through all of that and you learn us and you accept us and respect us, we will be a ride or die. So I do agree with that. I do. Thank you for saying that. They're calling you Dr. Elijah in the comments.
Dr. Elijah.
Look,
I got a lot more. I got a lot more stuff I could say, but
yeah,
this could be a 3-hour show.
Yeah, it could. And I was just telling them they would have loved your dad. His dad passed away a few years ago, but he's always give good insight to stuff. So he gets it honestly. So thank you.
All right.
And you have a good one. Okay.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.